All right, so I'm going to show you how I make a cant on my Norwood HD36. As always, I'm just going to have the disclaimer, I'm not a professional sawyer. I've only been sawmilling a few years ago when I got a bug in my head to build a timber frame house. So I bought this thing on a pallet, put it together over a few weekends with my friend TJ, who will quite the character. Hopefully he'll come up to Alaska this summer. What we need to do today is we need to build some 4x6s. They're 16 feet long. We're going to treat them. I'll show you how I'm going to do that with my homemade old-fashioned way of treating wood, because the 100 meat birds that I've got in the brooder in the garage are A, starting to stink, and B, are becoming dangerously overcrowded. So we need to get them out of there in the next few days. I'd love to put them outside, but unfortunately I don't have the shelter for them yet. I've only been on this property for a little less than 3 years now, and between building the house and the shop and the chicken house, I don't have all the space that I need. So we're going to do some A-frames, Bob and I. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this Norwood fired up for the first time since last fall, and we're going to make a cant. Hopefully I can do it myself. To roll this log, it's pretty small. So this is how I do it. So we're going to fire this thing up here and get going. Got my daughter's trusty pink shooting glass on, and off we go! One thing you should notice is obviously it didn't work perfectly there, in the sense that the butt end and the taper end, I was hoping to take a little bit more off at the taper end, but you can also see here that if we hadn't jacked it up, we would have wasted a lot more at the butt end. It's pretty thin here, so I'm pretty happy with that. So it may not be perfect yet, but I think that's flat enough that we can roll it over on the bunk. So the way the HD36 works is you loosen it, and then there's these two wheels in the back for rolling it over. I'm just gonna flip this myself here, and we'll just push it in here. It should be pretty straightforward. Once again, I'm gonna make sure you lower the back wheels, because if you don't, then you can hit it with your blade. So we're going to just push that in here. Make sure it's high enough that we can, so it grabs. So one thing that's important to always remember, now that you've raised the jack, and sometimes I forget to do this, you don't want to do it, because the idea now is to make this level. So you got to remember to lower this jack, so that, again, the idea being that the log is level. That goat is very much in heat. This is in the way now. So we'll just get this out of the way. See, there's no waste at my house. That's firewood for next year. My boiler will eat that. Okay, so we've got this going here. So we'll fire this back up. And we're going to drop this down to the bare minimum that I need to take. I'm going to eyeball it at this point. Again, some people might be more precise with their cants than I am, but because my boiler will eat everything, if I have a little more than I need to take it off, it's not wasted in my house. So that to me looks pretty decent. So down we go again. I've got a problem. And the problem is I'm not squaring it off at the end there. So at this end, that is 8 3/4 thick. And at this end, we're looking at 8 1/2. So the only solution that I know what to do is I'll just make another pass here, and we'll just take a little more off. Again, if you're running a professional sawmill or whatever, it may be that you want to be a lot more precise than this. I don't know. I don't really care. I've got lots of spruce, and I need 50 cord a year of firewood, so it doesn't bother me to take a little bit more off and burn it up if I have to. How that goes. Now, that right there, in a lot of parts of the world, might be a saleable board, or you might want to take that. Firewood in my household. Part of it is I just don't have time to deal with that. I got a lot going on and a lot to build, and I'm not going to worry about trying to save every damn board. So, if I measure this again, we're looking at 7 1/2 at this end. We'll see how good of a job I did leveling this thing in the snow. And we're at almost, we're 7 1/2 right there. So we're dead on. So what we do now is we roll the carriage back. Hopefully out of the way. I forgot to dog it last time, but the log was big enough that it didn't matter. So not that big of a deal. What you do is you lift these back wheels up a little bit. Like this, and then you take your log and you simply flip it up here like this. Excuse the camera work, but Bob's gonna have to grab that end for a second down there and help me just straighten this out. There we go. That's good. Put it back in towards the wheel there. Okay, good. So what you do is you take your speed square. This is what I do anyways. Oh yeah, look at that. See that? See how it's on the bunk there and against there? That right there is nicely done. So you can adjust that with the dogs if you need to, but I don't need to. What I want to do is put these in to hold it. I'll check it since I put it on there. Very, very good. I mean, that's perfect. That's perfect as far as I can tell. This is the first log I've milled in 6 months or something, so I'm a little bit rusty. You'll have to forgive me. Again, look at that. That looks, for rough cut lumber, I mean, that's as good as it's going to get. So again, you could adjust it with the dog if you had to. You simply put it into place. That feels pretty good to me. So what we want to do is we want to adjust that up. I almost made that mistake. You want to make 2 adjustments with your back jack. And so it was 1 1/2 inches. I've got it dogged, so I'll release the back dog. And we'll go up 1 1/2 inches here. Or so. Again, it's not perfect, but the idea here is to try to reduce some waste. I don't want to make it sound like I'm not interested in reducing some waste, because I am. I don't want to burn good lumber any more than anyone else does. So what we'll do is we'll just double check the square here. Bingo. Perfect. Okay? So that makes me feel pretty good here. So I'll fire it back up. You've got to adjust the height up, obviously. You don't want to take off more than you need to. That's to adjust the blade tension. I'm going to try it right there. Let's see how this goes. Checking my wheels. I've had people hit them before. Boom, $50 saw blade. That's starting to look pretty good. It's still a little bit rough around the edges there, but not the end of the world again for rough cut lumber. And remember, we're making this into a 4x6. So once I get the cant, what I'll do is I'll take 2x off it of whatever dimension so that we can use those for trusses on the chicken house, or we can use it for walking or purlins or girts or whatever we're gonna need. So, on the final cut, what you need to do is reduce or take these off, and then you want to remember to adjust this down. Sometimes I forget to do that. You don't want to do that. You only want to have that jack up twice. So this is a simple matter now of rolling this over. This is hilarious to me that I can do this, by the way, because when I did the fir logs that I used to build my house, it took 2 men and a tractor to roll them over. So now drop these. I drop these wheels all the way to the bottom, and then I put the teeth up, because I may or may, if I was going to make boards in particular now, which I'm not going to do on this, but that way you can go down to within an inch of the bottom. If I was going to make one buys out of this. So we just push that into place. That feels good. Feels good. Now let's just check how good of a saw job I did and how good Bobby and I leveled this. Okay, so that's off a little bit. You see that? At the top there, there's a bit of a gap. There's a couple ways I could correct that. I could get some wedges and go on the other side and adjust that upwards. But on this particular project, I'm not going to do that. And the reason I'm not is only because to make a 4x6 skid for a chicken house, it's not that important to me. What's way more important is getting this job done and getting those chickens out. So I'm going to call that good enough, even though I'm aware that it's not perfect. So we're going to dog this now, make sure it's as tight as possible. Again, I wish I had a little hammer. And then we're going to go over here. We're going to adjust this height down. We want to just take the bark off. Maybe a little bit up. We don't want to take too much off here. I haven't measured this. We want to make sure we're left with a 4x6. One thing you want to do on this when you get this cant going here, you want to adjust this in as much as you can so that the blade is less flexible. So that's what you do. See that at the taper end, I'm not gonna square it off. I know I've got at least 6 inches down here, so I'm not even gonna measure, which I might normally. There is a gauge right here that you can see. So we'll just eyeball this. We're gonna eyeball this right now, right here. this is close to being usable. I mean, maybe you got about 6 feet or something there. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna go toss this on the forks, quite honestly. There's some waste on there, but there's some sort of board there. You can see the nice blue stain in this spruce, by the way. So I'm still not real happy with this. So I'm gonna go down one more time, and I'm going to try to, oh, I see my gauge here is not right where it needs to be. Okay, so that needs to be adjusted. I see it got moved around this winter. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to do it the old-fashioned way here.
Oh.
There we go. Ah.
Yeah, you gotta go up a bit. You're smashed on it.
What am I doing here? There we go. I was going the wrong way. So, I'm gonna go down a little bit more here. The sun is right in my eyes, which I'm not gonna complain about because I haven't seen any sun in God knows how long. I'm gonna go down one more time, but what I'm gonna do, what I do is, I'm gonna fix that gauge. That gauge is usually pretty reliable, but it just got bent or something there. So I'm just gonna make a small cut here. What I do, being very careful with the blade there, of course, is I'll just go like that. That's 6 inches, so I know that's my 6. So I'm gonna take that off. Slightly under 6. Clearly a usable board. It's got a little bit of weight on one side, and again, depending on your application, you may or may not like that, but that's certainly a good chunk of usable lumber there. So there's the cant. Let's see how good of a job I did in milling this. Down at this end, it's a 7.5 by a 6, and we'll just check this end and see how close it is. We got ourselves a 7.5 by 6. Bingo! So we now have a good cant. Yes, it has some weight on this side of it, so it's not perfect. But again, for our purposes of building rough lumber chicken house, I'm really happy with this. So what we're going to do now is reduce this down to a 4 by 6, and then we'll treat it and we'll make another video on that.